Look busy.
What are we supposed to be doing? Not a back shot.
Oh, they're going to edit this.
We're just going to move around the room.
What you see here is part of a component for Indian education. This is a studio that we've made in one room at the administration building at the Sioux Area Public Schools. It's a combination studio facility with 2 sets in it, a control room for operating the studio, cameras, and work areas. There are 4 staff full-time employed at the Media Production Center for Indian Education. Linda Williams, John Thompson right behind her there. The set that you see there is the Magic Tree, and that's our preschool set. There's the control room that we operate the equipment from, and the artist's area is back there with Dennis LaJoyce. So this is the television studio where the component for the 4B takes place, which is a reinforcement of the preschool, the Indian Education Preschool. I'm Bill Davey, and I'm the producer-director of the television Indian Education programs in Sault Ste. Marie. And this is Joe Lumsden, tribal chairman of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. And it was through his efforts and the school system that these programs began. Maybe you could tell us how the origination of the 4B programs began.
Well, 3 years back when the advent of the Title IV A, B, and C programs became available for Indian education, the board, the education board, or the education committee of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, in conjunction with the Sault Ste. Marie area schools, began to explore a method by which we might be able to assist and bring up the academic level and the cultural knowledge areas of the Indian students in the system. And it was decided that in view of the fact that of an assessment that was made on the state, by the state in the school systems, that the reading and mathematics levels of the Indian children in the one school, which was 60% Indian pupils, was low. These would be the 2 areas in which we could begin to work in the academic area. And we also decided that there was a successful reading program which had been conducted for 3 years already in the Sioux system, which used the little letter people in the Alpha reading program very successfully, and the measurements and the testing indicated that it was indeed successful for the students generally in the system. So we decided that we would bring the Alpha program into the preschool and see how it worked with the preschool children. And the results of the first 2 years were pretty dramatic, as can be demonstrated on this chart. The area here, the darkened area, is the achievement of the preschoolers, 3 to 5 year olds, compared to the kindergarten level in the Sioux area schools, which are 5 and 6 year olds. The kindergarten children don't have the benefit of the Alpha program. It began in the grade 1. So as you can see, the preschoolers were scoring significantly higher in word meaning, listening, matching, alphabet, and in the numbers, and in copying, and everything related to the reading program.
Now this was done in the first year. This was the testing, the first year results.
This is the first year results, yes.
And now we'll be going into the 3rd year of that.
Right. The results of the testing of the last year are not conclusive yet. We don't have them. But that was the results of the first year itself. In line with that, too, the parents were very concerned that the cultural aspects be brought into the preschool program, which was somewhat difficult because at the time there weren't any preschool materials available for the teaching of Indian children. The preschool concept was just beginning to get into Indian education. So in line with that, we had to develop some of our own aids, and here are some of them. This shows a legend and also a graphic portrayal of a legend. This is one of the things we use. We use puzzles. Many of the conventional things we use corn and things like this. The animals, which are certainly a rare part of the life of the Indian people.
Birch bark wigwams.
Birch bark wigwams, such as we see in the background
Make
here.
little miniature ones, though, in the classroom.
Use a lot of visual aids, such as what you would see around here in the studio. The teaching, we have a staff in the classroom. We have between 30 to 35 pupils at any given time. We have one classroom teacher, 2 homeschool visitors, and sometime we have a teacher's aide. The homeschool visitors visit in the home. They bring to the parents the curriculum that is being used in the classroom. Also, they visit with the parents and seek to help them with any problems in the home environment that may be hindering the success of the school experience of their children. Also, they will encourage the parent to work along and become interested to the greatest extent in the education of their children. And as we know, this is very important in any educational experience of any individual. So all in all, what we have then is a pretty well-rounded educational experience, including the reinforcement of the TV component here, which brings the program into the home twice each week, which can be viewed by the pupil along with the parent and the rest of the family, so they can see themselves on TV, also get reinforced as to what was being conducted in the classroom academically, and in general just get a better image of themselves. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Bill, and Bill will probably explain a little more of the other 2 programs we have in Indian education.
I might want to cover one thing, that Title 4B is an Indian education, a component of the Indian Education Act, which we're funded under. The need was established for Indian education in this area, and then it was done, the grant was written
to the tribe. Yeah, it's a tribal contract. The contract for the Part B is to the tribe. The Part A program contract is to the Sioux area schools with the Indian Parent Committee. The advisory committee on the Part B contract is the Education Committee in the Sault Ste. tribe.
But then the grant went to Washington, D.C., where it had to compete against hundreds of other grants every year. And this, I think, is a pilot project in the use of videotape equipment to reinforce any kind of a school situation. So we've had an opportunity to have to develop everything on our own, and nothing to go by. The equipment was all sent, and then they said, well, just go ahead and see what you can do. So what we've done, and I'll explain a little bit about the television component of our program. First off, our map behind us shows where Sault Ste. Marie is. A lot of people are pretty vague as to its location. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan exists here, and we're at the very end over here, right next to Canada. Lake Superior here, Lake Huron, and Lake Michigan. This has traditionally been a center for Indians of this area, woodland Indians. Chippewa, the Sioux have been here, the Menominee, the Ottawa, the Potawatomi, the Iroquois. Today it's Chippewa, most entirely in this area. So, to get back to the television component of our program, its main function is to reinforce the classroom, to be played back to the children Actually, there's three parts to the program. One is to reinforce what's going on in the classroom back to the children by means of puppets. The set that you see here is just part of our program. The magic tree takes place in the tree that's back over here. Now it's a hollow tree, and then the other part of the set that you saw at the beginning is the inside of that tree, and all these characters live in the tree. It's a magic tree in the forest just outside of where these children live. And this is a Pukwudgie, a wood elf of the forest. Pukwudgie means a little person who lives in trees. It's a traditional Chippewa Indian character, and we took him out of the folklore of the Chippewas of this area. And being a wood elf, he can inherit the memory of his ancestors, so he becomes very valuable in teaching people about how things were when the Indians lived here many hundreds of years ago, and the traditions and the beliefs and the legends are one primary way that all history was transmitted by the Indians. So he becomes a central character in the transmission of some of these legends. We do a lot of research to break down these legends, to put them on an elementary level for the students. There's been quite a bit of research done by various authors on the subject of Indian culture and heritage through their legends. So we research that out and break it down so that the kids can understand it, and then present it in the studio using graphics that our artists puts together, and by making up little stories to go along using our puppets. The kids relate very well to these, and they know their names, they know their characteristics. And this is Roscoe the raccoon, who's a rascally little guy and always gets in trouble and has to be reprimanded by Cecil Skunk. Or Bobcat. And then we have a big character, Barry the Bear, and one of us dresses up in that bear suit. We either come in the set as Barry the Bear, or that's the character that goes out into the community and takes the letter people that were mentioned earlier. We go out to the stores, the various businesses, visit the doctor or the dentist. With Mr. T, we took him to the dentist to give the kids an idea of what it was like to go to the dentist. Many of them have never been there. And we actually watched a filling being put into a child's mouth, and the whole episode, I think, left the kids with a feeling that it really isn't so bad to go to the dentist, and that was one reason why we did it. Well, we do this with all the letter people, because that's one of the components within the preschool reinforcement, is presenting these letter people in a different way, in an entertaining way. The second part of our program is Indian culture and heritage, which we've touched on, in which we get into legends, get into a segment called The Indians Knew, which contrasts the way the Indians did things traditionally, how we've learned from those things, and how we use that information today. The other segment is called The Woodland Way, or The Way of the Wild, rather, and that we try to show the animals that live in this area and also the ecology of this area. We explain about the herbs and the trees and how they were used, how the Indians used those, and how that they exist there for us to use today. And we also try and teach values through different skits, morals and things like that, through the use of the puppets, confrontations with various characters. The third part of our program, and one of the very important parts, is that we go into the preschool and we film what's going on that week. And then we edit that into our program, which is usually about a half an hour long each week, the Magic Tree. And then we play that back the following week to the children and to their parents and to the community at large. We're aiming it at their parents because those are the ones we want to affect, to make them more interested in their children's education, so that at home they get reinforcement. And this should eventually create a very good situation as far as education is concerned in the children's home, because that was one of the areas of concern for the entire program. So the three areas are alpha. We teach, reinforce the concepts in the classroom and the alphabet, the numbers, the words. Then we go and teach the Indian culture and heritage, plus we show parts of the classroom to the home through the cable system each week. Now our programs are shown 3 times a week, over the cable, which can be transmitted directly from our studio here. In the future, I think we're going to spend more time in the classroom because that's been one of our most well-received parts of the program. And we're going to try and stick very closely with the preschool curriculum to reinforce it more directly. And in that way, I think we can measure the results of television, which has been a problem, I think, in the past, is to try to measure how good this kind of a component really is to a teaching situation. And we've got two other programs, which I'll mention, that are funded under a Part A grant of Title IV from on the federal level. And Part A covers the elementary and the senior high, elementary or secondary education here in Sault Ste. Marie. And so we have one program called the Woodland Way, which covers the elementary school. And that's pretty much basically what the Magic Tree is, only we leave out the preschool kinds of reinforcement, the alphabet and numbers and things like that. But we present the Indian culture and heritage more directly. And then the senior high school level is different altogether. We bring in personalities or people working in Indian activities throughout the nation. We've had some people from Washington, and we have people on the state level come in and we talk to them. These are parts of our programs, and they're presented to go along with the curriculums in both the junior high and the senior high studies programs. We also do, we present Indian music and culture and heritage with slides, records, traditional and modern. We tie these things in with tapes that have been done, readings, poetry, a lot of cultural things, and we try to make it entertaining as well as informative by doing it in segments. An entertaining segment presenting Indian history, and then backing that up with an actual kind of a teaching tool to explain that history to go along with the curriculum. And in both of these areas, we're trying to tie this in closely to the curriculum so that it can reinforce what's being taught there, and it can be measured in those kinds of results. The other thing is we hope through this kind of a program to market it along with Indian Studies curriculums to be sent to other tribes, to other school districts that have Indian education programs. We've had a lot of help through the community, resource people, Indian craftsmen. The set that is behind us here was donated by an Indian craftsman in our community. It's a Chippewa wigwam made out of birch bark. The only nails in it are used at the base to hold it, but it's put together all with string and pieces of wood to represent the traditional Chippewa home. I think that covers the television part of our program. Our future is in the areas of hoping to market this. Obviously, it isn't the kind of program that can be funded indefinitely. It is expensive, although it's done on a minimal scale as far as television is concerned. All the equipment that we have is black and white. It's probably the cheapest TV studio you can put together for this kind of an activity. But it has been effective, and we are accumulating a lot of tape in our programs, and we hope that this can be shared. We've had a lot of requests nationally. We've gone to Indian education conventions nationally. We were asked to go to the American Folklife Festival in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the Smithsonian, to present our programs there, to let people know nationally a little bit more about what's happening in Indian education in the media. Is there anything you'd like to add to?
Well, the thing is, the one that's we have to do the work on right now is the one on the cultural heritage segment, whereby we can develop a packet that you mentioned, or some teaching aids and things that can be disseminated nationally. We feel this as being one of the functions and one of the objectives of this program, and we have stressed this to the Office of Education, Indian Education in Washington, and it was the way we were pursuing the development as we are where we are today. I just hope that we'll be able to continue in this area, because there's certainly in our travels we've noted that there's a definite need for these types of materials. Preschool programs, Indian preschool programs are becoming very evident all across the country, as I find out as I travel about. It's a definite area of education that is getting a lot of attention by tribes, reservation tribes and urban groups, and of course preschool nationally, even with non-Indian groups, is becoming the thing. So our concern will be definitely to see if we can develop a practical aids that will be applicable to other Indian tribes in their preschool programs. Also, we're glad that we can service the community. We are disseminating Indian culture to the community. We have a community here of about 20% Indian population, and the other 80% is non-Indian, so we are providing a community enlightenment of Indian values, Indian culture, making the community aware of Indian people, that we, Indian people then can get some pride in themselves, and this is why we have to be really concern ourselves with doing this thing in good taste and being factual. So there's a lot of ways by which a program, by the use of video, can affect not only your Indian people and our Indian people, but can affect just people in general. I think it's a reciprocating situation where they're learning while we're teaching our children, and so they're learning consequently because of our efforts on the video. I've found it to be a teaching aid. Like you say, we haven't measured it yet to see how really effective we are becoming, but I think the instrument now, we can do it. I'm sure it'll prove positively. Certainly our preschool program has been positive. We have no doubts about it. So all in all, I'm well satisfied with it, and the tribal members are satisfied with it. In fact, we might have over-solicitation for our preschool program this year. So we'll have to expand that aspect of our program. I can't add anything anymore. I must invite people to contact us if we need.
Yeah, we can invite contacts. We get them periodically, and it's a little difficult to make copies of our programs for national dissemination, but we hope to have that ability eventually. On a local level, we've had open houses and a lot of over 500 people last year just to come in to see what we're doing, because something like this, it's imperative that the public relations go along with it. A lot of money is being put into it, and the community needs to know what's being done and how the money is being spent. It is tax money, and this has been something to contend with, I think, in all of these programs. We have to let them know what the function is, and really how we're spending the money and what we've got going here.
I think one of the biggest things too that the Indian education program has created, it has created an interest by Indian parents. We're talking about a very active Part A parent committee, which is composed of approximately 40 parents, and we're also talking again with a like number of 80 parents who are involved in our preschool program. So we're talking about 120 parents there. We're affecting a lot of Indian parents who before, I think, didn't really become this involved in education. But we have got them involved in education, whereas 3 years ago we may have had at the most 6 or 7 high school graduates. Last year, 1975, I'm speaking of, we had 42. So it's definitely making an impact, I think, and we like to feel it's part of what we're doing. That's creating some of these statistics that we are now getting, and I'm sure with all the interest being shown by Indian people all the way, I think everything combined is what's going to do the trick. So, speaking on for the tribe, I can say that we're happy with it, and I just hope that we can continue to get the results we've been getting.
Look busy.
What are we supposed to be doing? Not a back shot.
Oh, they're going to edit this.
We just go move around the room.
What you see here is part of a component for Indian education. This is a studio that we've made in one room at the administration building at the Sioux Area Public Schools. It's a combination studio facility with two sets in it, a control room for operating the studio, cameras, and work areas. There are 4 staff full-time employed at the Media Production Center for Indian Education. Linda Williams
Decided that there was a successful reading program which had been conducted for 3 years already in the Sioux system, which used the little letter people in the Alpha reading program very successfully, and the measurements and the testing indicated that it was indeed successful for the students generally in the system. So we decided that we would bring the Alpha program into the preschool and see how it worked with the preschool children. And the results of the first 2 years were pretty dramatic, as can be demonstrated on this chart. The area here, the darkened area, is the achievement of the preschoolers, 3 to 5 year olds, compared to the kindergarten level in the Sioux area schools, which are 5 and 6 years.
John Thompson right behind her there. The set that you see there is the Magic Tree, and that's our preschool set. There's the control room that we operate the equipment from, and the artist's area is back there with Dennis LaJoyce. So this is the television studio where the component for the 4B takes place, which is a reinforcement of the preschool, the Indian education preschool. I'm Bill Davy, and I'm the producer-director of the television Indian education programs in Sault Ste. Marie. And this is Joe Lumsden, tribal chairman of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. And it was through his efforts and the school system that these programs began. Maybe you could tell us how the origination of the 4B programs began.
Well, 3 years back, when the advent of the roles, the kindergarten children don't have the benefit of the Alpha program. It began in the grade 1. So as you can see, the preschoolers were scoring significantly higher in word meaning, listening, matching, alphabet, and in the numbers, and in copying, and everything related to the reading program.
Now this was done in the first year. This was the testing, the first year results.
This is the first year results,
Yeah.
yes.
And now we'll be going into the third year of that.
Right. The results of the testing of the last year are not conclusive yet. We don't have them. But that was the result of the first year itself. In line with that, too, the parents were very concerned that the cultural aspects be brought into the preschool program, which was somewhat difficult because at the time there weren't any preschool materials available for the teaching of Indian children. The preschool concept was just beginning. The Title IV A, B, and C programs became available for Indian education. The board, the education board, or the education committee of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, in conjunction with the Sault Ste. Marie area schools, began to explore a method by which we might be able to assist and bring up the academic level and the cultural knowledge areas of the Indian students in the system. And it was decided that in view of the fact that of an assessment that was made on the state, by the state in the school systems, that the reading and mathematics levels of the Indian children in the one school, which was 60% Indian pupils, was low, that it was these would be the two areas in which we could begin to work in the academic area. And we also decided